If you listen to the first chapter and you're here with me, thank you. It gets brighter. Chapter 2. My first kiss. My first kiss. I wonder if people remember their first kiss. She was the daughter of people with old money. The insecurity of my family meant they were delighted to think that I was connected with her. She was a nice girl, a good girl. The initiative came from her, as I hadn't noticed her. I now recognize my type. Beautiful, complicated, intelligent, sometimes not Irish. The possibilities of getting lost in translation are immense, powerful. But this was a new world to me. A really nice girl, happy to meet me after school, to walk with me, to spend time with me, to be nice to me, and to allow me to kiss her. I think I can remember the dizzy feelings, the sense of a new world opening up to me. I felt I had some understanding of girls because I had such a close relationship with my sister. Now, with the benefit of over 50 years, I know nothing. But now I know nothing, and that feels like progress. I also feel I probably never will. I live with the mystery, as I'm increasingly drawn to beautiful, complicated, intelligent women. I always liked intelligence. I'm not sure if I'm pathetic to have feelings I had at 15 years of age, or if I should rejoice that I can still feel, can still be infatuated, can still dream, and live in hope that a magnificent woman will say yes to me. As usual, I have said and done a few things to drive my current favourite away. My need to be reassured expresses itself in numerous ways. The most annoying is the enormous numbers of texts I used to write to her, until she graciously told me that sometimes she wants to kill me. A little part of me thinks, well, at least I'm on her radar. She gets the texts. She tells me her translation app cannot take all the words. So now I strive for economy, for gnomic sentences. It's not the same. Her depths are so deep and unfathomable. All I can measure is she turns up. It's like therapy. Who knows what works? A returning client is evidence that something is happening that's worthwhile, and maybe that's all that can be said. Never gives me enough time, but she turns up. She is stunningly beautiful, an enigmatic, gifted, quiet and gentle woman that's unaware of the scale of her unique beauty. She looks different every time I see her. She seems to like the fact that I call her the Mona Lisa, only infinitely more beautiful. I adore her, and I don't really mind who knows. She could return to Eastern Europe and leave me alone, bereft, lost, broken. That's without any melodrama, because she lives within my head, my heart, my soul and body. I think of her when I'm not with her. I think of her before I go to sleep at night, and she's the first thought in my head every morning. We drink coffee in an ice cream parlour. She asked me once if my work was finished for the day today. I said if she was available, then I was finished work. If she was not available, then I have plenty of work to do, but most of it can be done on the phone. She smiled. She's economical. She knows any time with her is magical. She knows because I tell her regularly. TikTok gurus recently discovered I'm feeding my addictive nature tell me this is entirely the wrong approach. Treat her with a degree of contempt so she chases me, feels afraid I will leave her. The scarcity principle. Tap into her competitive instincts. The natural default emotional setting that he will leave me while I'm busy looking around for someone that's better than him. The rare time I didn't respond for a couple of days seemed to vindicate the TikTok advice, as she would come back and send a text asking how I am. I learned the jargon from an algorithm that has changed our world. It seems to know my interests better than I know myself. Please like and share, as it makes all the difference. The new mantra for the influencers. Ignore her and she'll be more available and make more of an effort. I watch videos telling me it's wise not to open text too promptly and definitely foolish to respond immediately. It feels like a game to be anything other than myself, which is honest, open, oversharing, complimentary, visionary, hopeful of a new life filled with warm sunshine, walks in meadows, hand in hand, sunset walks on beaches, good food, nice coffee, commitment and intimacy that takes us to warm oceans of the deepest pleasure, where we taste infinity together and easily feeling abandonment. But this was the mark of a man well into his 50s. Maybe one last hurrah, one last defiant impulse within the awareness that a decline at best and the hope of a painless death or maybe a sudden death for a range of possibilities awaits me. I will channel my inner Walt Whitman, his Leaves of Grass, a reminder to sing until my final breath. Then she asked me what I was thinking today. I told her she was living in my head. She said she was sitting in front of me and was a bit big to be getting into my head. A cute response. As I drove her back home in the spilling rain, I reminded her she was in my head. I said I seemed to be able to give her access. Of course it helped that she is not Tolstoy's. I was childishly proud to tell her I knew the Russian word for fat. She smiled. Maybe she appreciates that her amazing size 8 figure is noticed. Maybe not. I followed up with Pravda. I know this Russian word from a young age because it was the name of the main Russian newspaper. It means truth. I finished by saying da quietly, which means yes. She smiled her beatific smile. I hate to see her leaving. Time slows down with her. My senses are on fire. I hear the background music more clearly. It seems to be aligned with me as songs that mean everything to me appear magically. Sometimes a romantic soul has this charm which compensates a little for the pain that is its normal frequency. I also think it's interesting how concepts of beauty have evolved over the years. In previous centuries, her thin figure and tan skin would not have appealed, as it would have suggested a woman that was undernourished and probably working outside in the sun, whereas a plump, pale woman was clearly well-fed and didn't work for a living. It's fascinating and sad to see what people endure to try to reach impossible standards of beauty today, as many of the images are filtered and bear little resemblance to actual people. But in a digital world where attention goes, energy flows, feeding the profits of the pharmaceutical and cosmetic industries with their promises of the elixir of life for the increasing numbers of people across the globe that are fixated on their appearance. Each to their own, although it's my simple belief that there's a basic dignity in being who we are, without all sorts of medical interventions that don't always go too well. The doctor, the surgeon, will arrive if needed, and that's time enough. In the meantime, there's a young couple from the north side of Dublin. They meet. I sense the power of their attraction. It's raw, elemental. They find each other for a reason. They connect for a reason. I'm not sure I'm the reason, but I'm the child in the womb. Silent, hidden, protected. For now. Chapter 3. Birth, Shame, and the Catholic Church. I was born in Birmingham. My conception was an accident, but my birth was purposeful. My mother didn't want the shame of bringing a child into a world that had not been conceived within the holy bounds of marriage. She got married quickly and fled to the UK, the traditional refuge of Irish people that are outside the acceptable boundaries of Irish life, or who sought employment given the fragility of the Irish economy for many years up to the early 21st century. It's difficult for young people today to get a sense of the scale of Catholic hegemony, but it was real and it changed lives. Women were churched after pregnancy. A prayer was needed to allow them to gain access to the church building and liturgies again after the shame of conceiving and giving birth. Maternity touched all the sacred taboos. The Blessed Virgin never went through this messy moment of conception, maybe even a hint of pleasure. She was the ideal, and many a vocation proceeded to ordination as the seminarian was solid in his devotion to Holy Mary. This was evidenced by his commitment to the Rosary and the Hail Mary morning and evening. Of course, we never heard about Joseph's feelings. It must have been a surprise to learn that his wife was pregnant with the Son of God. In the Irish context, married women endured a variety of humiliations when pregnant. Our government fell over a pioneering and progressive politician, Noel Browne, attempting to introduce a state scheme to support pregnant mothers. He touched soft and tender spots in the Catholic Church, the medical profession, and craven politicians. He was doomed, but didn't know it at the time. A woman that had the bad sense to express her sexuality outside of marriage was likely to be in a swamp of misery and pain, not to mention the occasional suggestion of eternal damnation. She didn't do it on her own in those days or any days, but the women paid the price, as the sons, often of the more powerful and prosperous in small towns, were able to deny their responsibility. It was Maeve Binchy's circle of friends, with a lot more bitterness. It sort of depended on the priest that was preaching. Some reinforced the importance of limbo, and generations of heartbroken mothers went to their graves knowing that the early death of an unbaptized child condemned the little one to eternity in a twilight zone, one without light and without hope. The baby would not go to hell. The baby would not go to heaven. The baby would continue to exist in some place which language cannot begin to capture, although the mother and doubtless the father would feel the lifelong pain of loss. Casual cruelty, as this theological belief about limbo was amended years later, and it disappeared. My mother, being the strong one, found a relation in Birmingham, and this unholy family moved there for a few months, where there was room at the inn. She often took pleasure in telling me how I was delivered by an Indian doctor. Oh, she looked so well in her sari. She came in and said, This child should have been born by now. I heard about the delights of the forceps. I had no notion at this stage how children were conceived or born. I just felt noise and a little instinctive pain when listening to her words. I also heard about her terror, her fear that her husband would leave her alone in an alien city, that he would not return to the ward or would be killed in an accident. Irrational for sure, but powerful. He wasn't killed. I was born, and they returned to Dublin soon afterwards. Then they began to hear the comments. She tried to change the date of my birth. The citizens in the small town were not fooled. They noticed that I was an unusually big boy for 2 months. My mother remained defiant. I was oblivious. Blue eyes, curious, smiling, probably hyperactive even at that stage. My sister arrived less than a year later. 2 babies in less than 2 years. Irish twins. We shared the same age in years for 6 days each year. 2 children, born to 2 children. 2 people trying to be adults but facing numerous challenges. Secure employment was a problem. In those days, Dublin Airport was still growing in the fields around very small rural villages. Little sylvan lanes travelled out from a small Dublin city. In a regular bus service, little employment. An Ireland that was beginning to grow into itself, but which was going to face many agonies before having any sense that it had grown up, maybe locked in an eternal adolescence. Singapore came into existence in 1965, and with vision became an oasis of beautiful gardens and modern technology. Ireland had a different path. Lectures for the world with self-righteous confidence about neutrality, without the capacity to control its own waters, never mind defend itself. Membership of the European family would help. Many legal battles would bring the small, provincial, inward-looking, theocratic state into forming an acquaintance with modernity. This was very definitely in the future. My dad was willing to work. My mother was willing to work. Her rages were unpredictable, volcanic, and then she would go to work. Our grandmother was our refuge. The walls of her home were solid. It was the first council housing estate in the town. It didn't have the contemporary building standards of today, where we can hear our neighbour sneeze and a lot more. No, these walls were like the battlements of a castle, and they enveloped all the sounds that emerged each day. Joy, sorrow, love, hatred, pain, delight, all swirling around the small rooms and offering a centrifuge to disperse the hatred. My grandfather's joyful, booming voice at Christmas must have made a positive difference. The house always felt safe, and with my grandmother, a space that could process whatever delights my mother was offering on any given day or night. The fire was usually lighting each day, as my grandmother only left the house on Sunday to join us for a spin when my dad bought a car. During the week, the television was always on, and my grandmother often put marshmallows on a fork and sat them over the embers. It was a delicious treat. We would go there at lunchtime from school. My mother would take a short lunch and visit her mother. Rows and arguments would follow, daytime television playing in the background. We never knew why there were so many rows. It was just the noise that was the mood music to our lives. The scent of the lilac trees in the garden could not soften the intensity of the anger that burned through the house. And then she would be gone, and it would be peaceful again. My grandmother was a worthy opponent, and it never seemed to take too much out of her. As I grew older, I realised she came from a family with a number of people with angry hearts. They were only 2 generations from the famine. Who knows what was lurking in the psyche of a people that had experienced such collective and now probably intergenerational trauma. Yet Brown Thomas, that bastion of civilization and taste, that most exclusive store on Grafton Street, was established in 1849, when the famine was still decimating the western seaboard, with 1 million dead and 1 million emigrating. The jeweller, Weir and Son, was established in 1869, as the country attempted to cope with the aftermath of such a national wound. We didn't really know our grandmother's family except one man, our brother, who used to visit faithfully every evening. We recognised him by the smell. He was filthy. A special chair, which became known, after a lot of deep intellectual consideration, as the dirty chair, was kept in waiting for him. When the knock came to the door around 5 in the evening, myself and my sister, 2 little Pavlovian puppies, ran to get his chair, and he dutifully sat there for a few minutes. He never said much. The smell permeated every corner. It didn't seem to stick to our clothes, but who knew? Now I think he belonged in an Edward Hopper painting, as he was quite a mythical figure. I'm sure it would have been a futile exercise to open the windows and try to fumigate the whole house, as his unique perfume spread everywhere. Bless him. In later years, we did learn that my grandmother had another brother. This man featured in a national tabloid exposé criticising the living conditions of some of Ireland's older citizens. I didn't know until I saw the silhouetted pictures that he lived in the inner city in Dublin. My mother was outraged, her snobbery finding new ways to express itself, along with rage at the Sunday paper and her powerlessness, as she literally had no redress because the story was true. It didn't stop her offering her feedback, as her angle was that the man was dead and didn't deserve to appear in a national paper while lying in a grave. She had a point that emerged from the paradoxical views about justice and fairness, but maybe the paper was shrewd, knowing that dead men don't sue. The smelly man used to just appear and disappear. The next time we met, he was in a dirty old folks' home. Dickensian would not describe it. My mother's crazy, warm heart expressed itself in unique ways, including regular visits to this otherwise forgotten man. It was usually a Sunday afternoon, and it always felt gloomy as my dad parked the car and we waited for him to join us. Our family member wore a hat and a long coat, black trousers, black shirt, old jumper with a few holes, and shoes that had definitely seen happier times. There was little chat. I can see why now, as he was essentially on death row like all of us, awaiting his exit out of this world. But his energy suggested he literally had one foot in his grave. Once my mother produced a small bottle of whiskey she always brought to him. His eyes lit up a little, a few more words, remembering his tea was always ready at that time, and he was gone, back into the obscure darkness from where he emerged. Another quiet Irish citizen that never got a chance and would never have entered Brown Thomas's polished doors. Survival took many forms in the Irish psyche. I have no memory of how or when he died or where he was buried. Another ghost that haunts the twilight zone of my little life and failing memories. My dad often did shift work. It definitely upset his system, but he never complained. He would sleep a few hours and then collect us from school and bring us to the beach, which was about 8 miles away. It's about 15 minutes today with all the new roads, but it took a while then, driving through small country lanes until we reached a crescent-shaped beach. Later, I got my first job at 12 years old, working on a fruit farm near the beach. I cycled there and I liked the spin. My heart did sink a little when I heard the train arriving into the small town, as it contained an army of kids from the inner city in Dublin. They had their own unique charm, and it didn't appeal to me because they were true survivors, and it didn't always feel that safe in their company, as they were definitely protective of the crops that were allocated to them. Any sense that they were losing money would provoke immediate retribution.